All right, here we go. Welcome everybody to Gamecity Hamburg's latest event series called Game Starter. I'm Daniel. I'm project manager at Gamecity Hamburg, and most of you probably already know who we are, what we do. But for those who won't, here's a quick info. We are a location initiative funded by the city of Hamburg to support the local games industry, and we have this series, an ongoing series called Game Starters. It is about getting an exchange between career starters, students, and industry professionals, and we cover various topics like games programming, QA, art production, audio, and today's session is about project management. So we're going to talk about the producer / project manager's job. And we welcome 3 industry professionals today. With us today are Juney from Paradox Interactive from Stockholm. Hi, Juney. How are you doing? Nice to have you on board. We have Anke Günther, co-founder of Beardshaker and producer from Hamburg City. Hi, Anke. Nice to have you. And there is Thiemo, project lead at Sunday, Hamburg's hyper-casual powerhouse. Welcome, guys. And besides that, there is also my colleague Anke and Johannes, who you don't see. Johannes is going to take notes from the chat window. You can ask us questions anytime. They'll be forwarded to us, and yeah, we read them or we give them further accordingly. So don't hesitate to ask questions. You're strongly encouraged to. So right now, I'll just close this window here. 1 second. Here we go. Oh, I see Anke 2 times now. That's funny. My computer is buggy now. So here we go. Everything works fine now. Yeah. So thank you for our guests today. It's welcome, and it's very nice to have you on board. We have a lot of questions, and hopefully our audience will ask questions too. You all have similar job titles. You had similar job titles, but the companies you work for, they are rather different. The products you do are rather different. The experience you made is rather different. So it's going to be very interesting to get to know the challenges you had to face and overcome, especially in these times. So I would like every one of you would like to properly introduce yourself briefly and tell us what you're doing, stuff like what type of games your company is developing, what game projects you're currently working on, if you're allowed to say anything about that, and what kind of projects you've worked on before, type of game, size, technology, stuff like that. So please shoot. I would say, Juney, do you want to start?
Sure, happy to. So hi, I'm Juney. I'm the Legacy Portfolio Manager at Paradox Interactive. We're known for for strategy games, for management kind of games like Crusader Kings 3 and City Skylines. Inevitably, the German audience will likely be very familiar with that. As the Legacy Portfolio Manager, I take care of all titles that are no longer in active development. And it is a product management role, but I also have some responsibilities on the publishing production front and some project management related tasks as well. Previously, I worked at Sedasco, a publisher based here in the Netherlands, where I was the very first publishing producer, and I built out the publishing production pipeline, and then built a team of around 8 publishing producers that together with me worked on projects such as Owlboy. We did the retail edition for that. We also published Truck Driver, first for console and later for PC, and then also titles like Monster Crown, which is a little bit of a Pokemon-like and a personal favorite of mine. So those are the kinds of things that I've been working on. What I'm currently working on is unfortunately unannounced, but of course I also take care of everything and anything that needs a patch, that needs community support, that needs anything else that is currently within my portfolio.
Excellent. That's quite a lot. So you are in the Netherlands, not in Stockholm at the moment, right?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Then Rotterdam, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Thought so. All right. Thanks a lot. So, Anke, would you like to continue?
Yes. I'm working on Beardshaker at Beardshaker Games. We are 3 founder and have pure I'm not so good at English.
That's all right. Don't worry.
Yeah. We are 3 people and founded indie studio in Hamburg. And I do the producing there, but of course we are just 3 people, and so I need to be interdisciplinary. So I do scripting, I do game design, I do taxes, I do paperwork. Yeah, we are a programmer and an illustrator and me, so I'm the connection for the most of the other topics, also the producing. I was at the Delic Entertainment 2 years before that. So this is an adventure game company, and I worked on titles like Ravensburger Puzzle, the digital game for PC.
Okay.
Yeah, part 1 and 2, and something called the Borgia Hidden Object game for a famous European TV series. And it was interesting because these games were there to build the finance for the classical adventures when the market wasn't right to get a lot of money with these games. So yeah, the team sizes was about 5 to 8 people, and today it's 3 up to 5. So
okay, doing the work of 8 people, I understand. Okay. Yeah, we all know the games from the Delic, great adventure series, of course. Nice one. And Thiemo, how about you?
Sure. Hey guys, nice to be here. Yeah, so 2 years ago I graduated and afterwards started at Sunday. We started off with 3 people actually. Right now we scale up to more than 25 people. In the beginning I was business development manager. Afterwards quickly took over responsibilities as project lead, which is also the main reason why I'm here today. Actually, today I got promoted to a new position, but I think I can tell more about that later today. Yeah. During the peak times, I actually, I think managed about like 14 people, so our whole production team, which was immense responsibility and so many great learnings. Yeah, that's actually what like my journey, how it's looking like. And at Sunday, we develop hyper-casual games. That means games our users play, for example, quickly 5 to 10 minutes on the bus. You know, not like hardcore games where you sit in front of your PC a couple of hours, just like super quick, very accessible. Yeah, that's what we designed.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. Thanks a lot. We've seen the growth of the App-like group, which you guys are part of with great interest. I wish you all the best, guys. It's really interesting to see what you're up to. Looking forward to the next games. I know you had some hits already. So I hand over to Annika.
Yeah, let's start with your personal career start and your way into the industry. So yeah, how did you get into the industry, and was it anything like you imagined before you started? Just start whoever likes to talk first.
All right, I'll go first. So for me, I actually have a degree in programming, both a bachelor's and a master's. And along the way, I discovered that programming wasn't entirely for me because I was surrounded by peers that were more experienced, they were more passionate, they were just simply flat out a lot faster at it than I ever was. That I did like the academic part, the research, the math. I did like managing the team. I did like things like the deadlines, communication with a teacher, and that sort of thing. Alongside my studies, I also organized events in the game development industry. So I've been hanging around for a while, like networking events and conferences for up to 1,000 people. And at the final conference that I did, one of our sponsors was an up-and-coming publisher here from the Netherlands called Sedasco, and they were at the time just like practically 3 FTE, and they were looking for their very first producer. They weren't entirely sure what a producer did, but it involved organizing things, they thought, and I didn't know what a producer did, and I thought, well, I guess I can organize things. So that's how I ended up with in a role as a publishing producer. I was the first one there, and I basically built the publishing pipeline and the team from there. So that was, for me, my journey from programmer into publishing producer and by now product manager.
That does sound typical for back in the days, I have to say. Yeah. All right, sorry, Annika, please go on. Maybe Anke.
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit strange because I studied computational visualistics, where you normally end up in the medical part of the industry and do software for that or for car systems. And I needed to make an internship. And I loved game since I was a child and have tried stuff out before, like build a small quiz and such stuff, and thought, oh, before the life will get hard and so the topics were boring, I will have a funny internship, and went to the Delic. And I was used to key competencies that was taught at our universities beside all the technical stuff. So I was used to lead small teams to produce an outcome. And so I did this at the Delic as well. And after the 2 first weeks, the Carsten came over and said, in 2 months, you will develop your own hidden object game. So yeah, out of the blue, this was really cool. And so in time of this internship, I have a really crappy hidden object game printed on DVD and sold in Saturn, and this was really funny. And I realized, okay, this just happened to be an internship. You can do it on your own later on, and you can do it as a full-part job. But my study was interdisciplinary, and so I love to work with the small teams and have my hands on everything. So building with the guys the working pipeline for the special project, and then bring it on the way and help developing the project. So it's not the classical producing role.
Yeah, all right. Well, very interesting.
All right, I guess I go next. So I studied business administration here in Hamburg at HSBA, actually with the big corporate Beiersdorf AG. And quickly I realized that like the corporate environment is not really suited well for me in a way. I really wanted to like experience fast growth and really scale up something quick. And then in a corporate environment, maybe that's rather limited, I would say. And then I got a very nice offer from my current CEO, and he said, hey, we have this new company that we actually want to found. How about you build it basically up from scratch? So initially, I did not choose the game industry, so kind of the game industry chose me, but I was more interested in actually scaling up a new firm. And then together with our managing director, yeah, we, as I mentioned already, we scaled up from like 3 to now about 25 people, and our growth plans are definitely doubling, tripling the size within the next 1-2 years, let's see. Of course, depending on our success. But yeah, that's quick and dirty how I ended up here.
Yeah, it was a nice start, really. All right, so you took the easy way out and thought making games is easier than working for a large corporation. Okay, that's interesting. Well, we'll see. Excellent.
Yes, so yeah, that's basically all your career ways. So is there anything you should have done differently when you first entered the industry?
Maybe I continue. when I kind of prepared myself for the talk, I thought about, is there something like significant that I would have done differently? And maybe it sounds arrogant, but I would say no. I mean, along this way, I've done so many mistakes, but out of these mistakes, I actually was able to learn so much. So, I mean, mistakes, they contribute a lot, actually. Of course, it sucks in that moment when you do something wrong, but overall, I think it definitely contributes to learning. So for me, I think that's a no.
Agreed.
I think I can tie into the learning part. For me, I would have started asking questions from more experienced people earlier. I didn't really feel comfortable reaching out to people that were mid-level, that were more senior than I was, to talk about the issues that I was faced with. We were a very small team and no one had production experience. And that meant that every challenge was a new challenge. And we didn't have the answers, and I should have just realized that those answers were probably out there somewhere. And now that I have a lot of people in my network that I can ask, I realize that I could have started asking a lot sooner.
Yeah, asking questions is good. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with them both. For myself, I would. It would have been a benefit to be more self-confident. I think I was often too fast, too insecure by different information, and this makes the finding of the right decisions much more complicated and took some time, which wasn't necessary. Yeah.
Understood. Yeah, that's fair enough.
That's the main point.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah. Okay, Annika.
Yeah. So one reason for this event series is to have young career starters learn from it. So maybe wasn't there any advice that was given to you that really helped you going forward early in your career, or was it all rather hard-learned lessons?
Especially for me, in the beginning, an advice that my manager gave me, actually very related to project management. He described the project manager as like a bird, and then at times you really need to differentiate. Okay, do I kind of do like the deep dive into the details, so like really into the very very much details that you tell the coder, hey, I really need like this aspect, and this needs to be done that way. And then you need to handle the switch to then zooming out again and having like the overall view. And then this bird metaphor really helped me somehow to like grasp what a project manager actually does. And for that, I was really grateful.
Very nice description. Yeah.
Yes, it is cool. For me, it was where the lessons we have in the key competency course, which was something like the 5 dysfunctions of a team, or the Tuckman model for team building. So I really benefit from the psychological part of how humans work together and how different they are and how important communication is. So it was good for me to know that there are many different types of people and that you need to handle them differently, but it really needs some years and many different people to learn what this difference are and how to juggle them. I find this is really important to have an effective working pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
For me, I honestly wouldn't even know where to start. Our industry is filled with a lot of people that are very much willing to help if you reach out and actually get around to asking those questions. But something that was very pertinent for me personally was that I felt like I had to know it all. I had to be able to do it all. I felt like it was my responsibility to get all it done. And at some point, a relation of ours told me that I should optimize for impact rather than for time. So I kept cramming more knowledge into the time that I had to try and learn about all of it. And it just wasn't effective. Where for example, the Pareto rule says like 20% to 80% of the results come from 20% of the time spent. And I discovered that can really help you prioritize. It can help you choose what the areas are that you want to focus on, that you should be focusing on, and really highlight this is where you should start. And if these other things come later or maybe not at all, then so be it. And it really helped me find more, I'm not saying that I'm balanced in my life right now, but it helped me be more balanced.
Yeah, that sounds very reasonable. It actually reminds me to current discussions going on when you see crazy requirements from HR people that you have to be able to fly, be bulletproof, and like be a rock star in everything, which is funny to me still to this day. Yeah. Okay, so thanks, Annika. I would take over from here and have a few questions, more questions about your job. It's called challenges and day-to-day working routines. I would like to know, how does your day usually start and what are you doing throughout the day? Maybe Anke?
Okay, because we are a small team, this is different every day. So normally I like to think in weeks. I start a week and get all the to-dos I want to handle this week and bring it in a way which is reasonable with the work of my colleagues. But we are just 3 people and we all have the same rights. So sometimes everybody does what they want or what feels right now. So unexpected things happen very often, and so I have this bigger goal of the week, and I have to mark what is needed to be done, what is more flexible, and what can I do when I don't have the data from my colleagues for work. So I have different parts of to-dos which I prepare for me. And every day we have a classic daily stand-up, but okay, it's Corona, so no stand-up, a daily writing down what we will be doing, and on the next day checking what have we done, what is the next step to go, and then working on that points. So that's the main thing. And we have 2 business meetings each week where I moderate the projects we are working on and asking for problems, ideas, and we do a strategic talk. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
I can complement that because even though we're a 700+ team, my daily planning also gets turned upside down very regularly. Much like you, I have a couple of meetings that occur every week, but otherwise for my day-to-day, I will start with reviewing my mailbox to see if there's anything that started burning overnight, like massive fires that need attention. Then I will look at the to-do list that I prepared the previous day, see if those fires need to reorder my priority list in some way. Eventually, I will also have a look if I'm prepared for any meetings that I have in that day, and those could be recurring or incidentals. And after that, I will start working on that priority list top down. However, fires erupt throughout the day, so I'm constantly reorganizing that priority list. Throughout the day, that also involves preparing for any meetings that I have the next day, and updating that priority list in preparation for the next day. So it is fairly routine. It's always updating priority list and then executing, but the actual content of that to-do list is all over the place. So it's 140 different topics in a day, any day.
I guess so, yeah. So it's firefighting every day.
Yes.
Basically, yes.
I'm switching between long-term and short-term firefighting.
Yeah, of course.
I can very much relate to the fire. In fact, my MD calls me sometimes like the fire extinguisher. I mean, overall, like looking at those past years, I have done, I think, any type of project and any type of department in this company. So I'm really like used where, okay, this is like the biggest fire, I jump onto it. And then like the next day, there's a different fire. So for me, overall, really, really diversified, which actually makes this job very interesting and fun, because the monotony simply doesn't exist here.
Yeah, pain is different every day. All right. Okay. So, I mean, Anke, you already told us about your group size. Like, how about you guys? How large is the team you're usually managing?
So for me, that's a fairly quick answer. Right now, my team consists of basically me. But previously, my publishing production team would be anywhere between 6 and 8, depending on how many interns we had. And I also ran a porting studio, and that was anywhere between 4 and 6 programmers. So that's been my experience so far.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For me, as I said, we started out with 3 people in the beginning. Then after like half a year, of course, we constantly recruited new people. Then I think after like half a year, I took over responsibilities first as a team lead, project lead. And I think my team consists of 2 to 3 people, like very small team. And then of course, over the time grew until looking at the past couple months, managed the whole production team. As I already mentioned, around like 14 people. Then also interdepartmental connections with user acquisition, marketing, and so on. So I would say around 15 people. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's quite a lot already. Yeah. All right. You all know we live in pretty crazy times. How tricky is it to manage your teams and your workload during the pandemic? Your teams as productive as before? Are there any special problems or any advantages?
So for us, what we clearly saw is, I mean, we basically started the company a couple months before the pandemic. So we definitely saw a steep decline in communication effectiveness, and especially in creating concepts for ideas. I think especially the latter one that really was a big problem for us in the beginning, because we learned people are just so more effective when you can all get in one room, put your heads together for like 1 hour, instead of everyone sitting at home on their couch with the laptop in the lap and just thinking. Just being in the same room creates a certain energy that really leads and supports concepts.
It does, especially in your business, where you generate ideas quickly, really quickly, and in the collaboration. Okay, yeah. Juney, how's it affecting you guys?
For the publishing side, I was actually kind of surprised with how well it went. For me personally, I really like working from home, so it means less distractions from people standing at my desk when I'm clearly with headset on and I don't want to be interrupted. And can you fix my Xbox controller cable? I'm like, I'm working on contracts, please no. So that's the kind of thing that stopped happening, which was great. I was able to focus a lot more, and I could deal with questions as soon as they came up. I would still check every half hour to an hour, so that helped for me a lot. My team on the publishing side was the same level of productive, I would say, but we definitely did notice that on the development side it got a lot harder. And that wasn't necessarily the things that you typically hear with what Thiemo also said on the design side, but also just the practical challenges of developing for a console remotely, because you can't just lug the development kits all over the place without permission and that sort of thing. So that definitely slowed things down a little bit as well.
Yeah, also an issue with data security. If you work for larger clients and IPs and stuff, it can be very, very tricky. Yeah. And how about you, Anke? How did it affect you guys?
Hard. It affects us hardly. In case of our illustrator is a young father, and in the times where the kindergarten was closed, we have really problems to get the workload done, and he started to work at night because his women were working in the afternoon, and in the morning she is with a kid outside, then he in the afternoon, and so he has to work at night. Our programmer is also a night bird, and so the points for digital contact shrinked to a few hours, and this was really strange. And also, like Thiemo said, the creative stuff doesn't work so well in distant. It's more easier when you are all there and can throw everything together. But yeah, we handled this somehow and developed a pipeline where I can look for the assets of our artists, and so he don't have to communicate as much as he needed to before that, and can make this easier for him. But I got all the information I need to give to the programmer and to build up the games. But this is really complicated, and now we are slowly turning back to daytimes and having again more contact. So I'm glad that we are this far now.
Okay, so you're all still doing remote work, or are you coming back into the office slowly?
I'm in the office the whole time. We have over 80 plants, so I need to water a lot. Yeah, our programmer is working in home office, and the illustrator is nowadays coming back for the first week. I'm so glad.
Yeah, nice. Good to hear.
But so they were away for 1.5 years. Yeah, remote.
Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah, I'm just back in the office now. So I was stuck in my living room for 1.5 years, which is quite a struggle. But I've heard this story many times that production really dropped with when you had kids. Like I know some developers, they've got 2 or 3 kids, and kids don't care about pandemic. They need entertainment. Yeah. So it's really, really difficult on the development side. Yeah. But you, Thiemo, you're still remote, or?
Actually, we went back to the office a couple of months ago. We do have the policy of that you either need to be tested or vaccinated or be cured by COVID, of course. Yeah. But I think the overall spirit is definitely going in the right direction. Like, everybody wants also to go back to the office. The current policy is 3 days on-site, 2 days off-site. Of course, only for those that are, as I said, tested, vaccinated, or cured. But overall, I think the atmosphere in the team is that everybody likes actually coming back to the office. And I mean, we all realize being at home did make ourselves a little lazy. And then getting back this energy and coming to work definitely feels like an improvement to most of us.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like, you have much more of a structure when you go out every day, and instead of staying at home, weird things can happen. I know quite a few interesting stories, but well, let's hope for the best. So I'm coming up with the next one. As I mentioned before, this session is called what does a producer / project manager do? And well, to me, these are 2 kind of jobs, really, but most of the time it's just one job, especially it's 2 different jobs in larger companies or really big teams, and where you have more like dedicated roles. And I already reckon like you have to fit in a lot of shoes, Anke, and having a team of 14 people doing hyper casual, it's like probably not as dedicated as in larger corporations like Paradox and their dev teams. Like, how do you differentiate the 2 roles, like a producer and a project manager?
So for us, actually, it is very different. Like, the producer, I think we call game leads in our company. Okay. And we clearly differentiate between like the 2 current game leads we have and me, the project lead. So what we've done in the past is that they actually work out the ideas, the concept itself. And then basically I take those packages and I put them through production, right? So I just coordinate based on what they actually came up with. So I think that already makes it clear that it is a very strong differentiation for us. We also had the case, because we over-recruited a little bit in terms of artists and coders, that the other game leads also had to take over project management responsibilities, and I also had to take over concept creation. But overall, we learned that at least for us, it's best if we kind of try to separate those, because yeah, I think each role has their own strengths in a way, right? Like project manager is usually more structured and the other guy is like more creative, and we really complement each other well.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that very well. So then Juney, you probably have some good ideas about that.
We have a lot of different flavors of producers and project managers. That doesn't necessarily mean that I could hard define either the difference between the two roles, but I think the broad categories that we have at Paradox would be the development producer, who is the person that's embedded on the studio side, who's taking care of their team and ensuring that obstacles are cleared out of the way. Then we have the publishing producers, who keep an eye on the general publishing planning, the release schedule, and also everything that's needed to be able to bring the title to market. So it's the same core skill set of removing obstacles, but it's with more long distance partners, performing activities that are more long term in scope and scale. And then we also have project managers, but those are not on game projects. Those are on the more the internal service side, so they will take care of different projects that support all the development teams, for example in IT, for our player services, our different launcher, the Paradox launcher, for example. All of those have project managers that do that kind of work. In my experience, a lot of publishing producers also, especially in smaller companies, will also do a lot of the project management related tasks.
Yeah, I'm at the same experience actually, and well, Anke, well, this question is probably not for you. so
yeah,
you everything.
I just can say that's executive stuff, and the publishing parts are decided by all three of us. So we mix up our roles by what we need to, so we don't stick to positions. So normally it's hard for me to say, if someone asks me what I do, to say producing, because I feel like an imposter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what part of the job do you consider most challenging?
For me, that would be constantly knowing how to prioritize in an ever-changing industry and with ever-changing requirements. There are always a lot of different stakeholders involved, and they all have different wants and needs, and they can change from day to day. And in the larger scale of things, when you're dealing with 140 different topics within any given day, knowing what matters most impact-wise is always a challenge. That's not to say that I don't like it. So it's something that I'm still trying to master, and I'm enjoying that process of trying to master it a lot.
Okay.
100% agree. For me, prioritization again as well is, I think, the most challenging part, especially with multiple running projects. You really have to prioritize and get your shit together in order to get the best result in the end. So really to assess where's the biggest fire, where's the smallest fire, and how do I walk from that big fire to the small fire.
So firefighting again, right? All the time.
I'm totally with Juney about all the topics, and especially the long-term stuff, which should not be hidden while firefighting. Sometimes this topics steal away, and you need to remember and pull them in front of the others. Yeah, and also the part that the life of our colleagues and my own is changing, and so that we need to rethinking our working pipeline regularly, so that we don't stand still, but look what we need of one another, and how new obstacles can be approached or even made visible in the first case.
Yeah. All right. Okay. And now the opposite. What do you enjoy doing the most?
For me, I think, as I already mentioned, really seeing a company grow at such a pace. I mean, I originally started here because I wanted to, or had the idea of founding my own startup at some point. Probably not in the games industry, just like a general feeling I had. And really seeing and experiencing this fast growth is so rewarding. I really, really love it. Like there are new challenges every week, every month feels so different because practically we grow our team by 1 to 3 people every month, right? So it's like constant growth. For some people, I think it may be exhausting. I really like blossom a little bit maybe into it. Like I really, really love it. That's the most exciting part.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me it's kind of similar, and it's not just being confronted with new challenges every day, but also with things that are outside of my comfort zone. I've discovered that when I'm pushed outside of my comfort zone, I'll get this uncomfortable feeling in my gut. And then when I actually manage to tackle the challenge, and that doesn't mean successfully, I will still feel like I'm rewarded. It feels very satisfying to, sort of discover what the learnings are. And sometimes that's a great result. And sometimes the great result is the fact that we learned a lot from it. But putting myself out there and trying new things, getting up on a stage for the first time to speak in front of 120 people, or being responsible for forecasting a budget for the first time. These are things that intimidated me a lot at the beginning, but I got the chance to try them out, and now I feel a lot more comfortable, and it makes me feel like I've grown a little bit as a person each and every time. So those new challenges are a blast.
Yeah, face your fears. It's always good. Yeah, thank you for your answers. And more difficult stuff, like how do you guys handle changing requirements from a publisher or marketing department when it goes against the team's point of view or exceeds budget limits? Like how do you handle it project management wise and like personally with the team? I guess you all made these experiences.
You want to go, Anke? Or
yes, thanks. in our case, it's more contract work, and we are used to have a really concrete contract, so that we have a clear scope of the projects and talk from the beginning about the changes which will happen. So we normally plan with a lot of buffer. Of course, we are producing stuff, and normally this is interesting because when I was younger, I thought, okay, a deadline is a deadline. Oh no, everything will fly up to the moon. I don't know. But this isn't the case. In the most cases, you just can talk out everything. So we are working with second deadlines for ourselves, and if we don't reach the content we have planned to this deadline, we will inform our customers that there is a problem. So it's before the deadline they have, so that we have a fair amount of time to talk these things out and can look at reducing something of the scope, just pushing the deadline further. So yeah, in the first years we were struggling with overworking for such deadlines, and nowadays we are more cool and more communicative about these things, and this works well out.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good takeaway, especially for young and inexperienced teams, because I remember like back from my days when I was a younger developer, like we had the same issues. Like we didn't really dare like to approach a publisher or an investor like and tell them, oh God, we're not gonna make it. And we thought like, oh, they're gonna kill us, we're done. But well, it changed a lot. The industry changed a lot. I think today the most important thing is to have transparency and talk with the guys through, and everything's gonna work out in most cases. So how about you guys?
Yeah. So while I've only been on the publishing side and not on the development side, so I've mostly been on the side asking for the changes to be made. I'm much of the same mind as you guys, but I also wanted to add that it's also often about compromising and clearly understanding what the ask is, because there are often situations where a publisher may ask for something or a marketing department may ask for something and they honestly have no idea what exactly it is that they're asking. And when you enter that conversation with them, it could be that they're looking for something that could be an hour of work, when the first interpretation that you have is, oh no, this will move my entire planning by 3 weeks. So I'm experiencing this almost every single day, where I will ask the development team, so hey, could we do something about this? And they're like, oh no, this will take 5 days. And then I'm like, wait, I just wanted you to capitalize these letters. So, you know, that kind of compromise is also enter that conversation and try to figure out what exactly it is that the need is, and then figure out if you can make that fit instead.
Well, it's just half an hour of like CGI. It's not that expensive. Come on. Yeah.
For us, I think since we really grew at that pace, we constantly changed our processes overall, which also was, I think, tiring for some people, because it's really like a lot of new stuff every week, and then we approach this like departmental communication differently. So we are very much used to this constant change. I think this belongs in a startup environment, because you always try to improve yourself. You always try to make it better than last week. So yeah, I think somehow we are very much used to it and adapted to this style. And I think currently we are like right now grooving into our process, which seems more long-term in a way, and which seems that we can actually create like departments out of this whole one person manages all mess that we had the couple like months. And I think once we transition into this new process, it actually becomes even more scalable. Yeah.
All right. This is all very interesting. Now we're coming to crunch time, our favorite. Like, how are you trying to prevent the team from crunch time through project planning? Like, what's your best approach? How did you handle it? And how did you handle it in the past? And like, what have you learned now?
So basically, on the publishing side, I would keep sneaking in comments to my dev teams to please add more buffer. And they were like, yeah, but we can really make this deadline. I'm like, please add more buffer. So I would just, you know, look at previous projects that we'd done, see what kind of timeline they had, and also how much delay they'd encountered along the way, and then just stimulate them to please think of their health, please think of the vacation time that they still need to take. Please think of things like sick days or a programmer just stepping out of the project or anything like that, and take all of those things into account in that buffer that you schedule. So, and then after that, it's honestly about prioritizing health and sustainable working over anything else. Is it really that important to meet this deadline to sacrifice team health? And that is something that you just have to account for when you decide whether or not to enter a project.
Mm-hmm.
For us, I think no one here does a typical 9-to-5 job. We are very ambitious, I think, overall, which also, like at Beardshaker, the company I previously worked in, which is like a big corporate, and usually people check in at 9 and then directly check the clock. Okay, now it's 5. Bye bye. We are really try to achieve something here, which does sound very effective, but on the other hand, I mean, we do all work a lot, so we really sometimes have to also say, hey guys, the deadline, we may not reach it, but let's not work another 2 hours until like 9 or so, but let's just call it a day. Tomorrow is another day. And also very grateful for that. Like our managing director, of course, he has very concrete plans, but he definitely also prioritizes health over the actual end result. So I think we're well set up there.
All right.
Yeah, and for me, the first projects were with DVD pressing process. So that was the time when the real crunch happened, because you have expensive fees for delays, such a press slot. Yeah, but my mistake was that I take this culture into our small company. So I think the first year we regularly worked until 11 p.m. So we just worked and worked and worked and worked and had the thinking of, this is normal, this is okay. Yeah, we were young, we could do this. But in the years, we realized that this is stupid and we can't hold it together this way, and started to look for the health stuff Juney mentioned. So yeah, we changed our now I have the same problem, prioritization.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
In these topics, and cool down, and with the strategics of different deadlines for inner and outer process, and more growing buffers and more learning how to handle different situations, we become calmer and more
Mature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that as like a real hard worker, but in the long run, it's quite damaging on all fronts, really. Okay, thanks a lot for these insights. I will go now to some bad stuff, some more bad stuff. It's called When Things Go Wrong. There's this famous quote from John Carmack. It says, making video games is harder than rocket science. And I think it's actually true. Things always goes wrong. I mean, never goes according to plan in my book, rarely. Well, you're firefighting every day. So I know we all do our pre-production, finding out the fun part of a game. And you had a vision, you had a general idea of your project. And then you find out, oh, it's not fun at all. Like, what are we going to do now? Like, do you cancel it, or you try and fix and fix it until it is something close that you wanted to do? Like, how do you approach these scenarios?
I think my answer here will be very different than Juney's and Anke's.
I think so too.
We are in the hyper-casual business. We develop games very, very fast. That means from idea, concept to like the first playable version. Usually we try to do it within a week. That results in if a mechanic is not working properly as we imagined, or if something else is technically not possible. It really depends on the idea, but it's also kind of easy for us to say, okay, we have a backlog of 20 more ideas. Let's just skip to those and really work on something we truly believe in. So I think that just in the end allows us to be very, very flexible. I can assume that if you work on more like hard games or like mid-core games, this is not that easy, and that you say, okay, damn, let's cancel it, what a shame. But yeah, for us, I mean, it really depends in the end, right? So maybe I just quickly explain the process. So we have in the beginning, we have a concept, and then we have this like 1 week until the test. And once this final version is done, we just put it on Facebook. And then we measure a couple of KPIs. For example, the click-through rate. That means how many people see the ad and actually click on it. And there our benchmark is 5%. And if you reach this, then you jump into the next phase, which is MVP. And so we basically build the game there with 10 levels. And once that is done, we then jump into the scaling phase. And just as a reference, so far, jumping from this like first phase to the second phase into the scaling phase, in-house, in 1.5 years, one project made it, out of a total of 250 to 350, I guess. So really, every week there is a new project coming up, which also results in, I would say, 95% or even higher rate of games thrown out because they didn't work out.
Yeah, I've heard that like 98 or 99% of like hyper casual pitches get rejected from publishers. It's a tough world. So I understand you guys, you just fail very fast as soon as your KPIs are not desirable. Well, I've heard rumors from a company called Quali, for instance. They've got a very interesting blog. They sometimes not just look at data, but they rely on the skills of their producers. They sometimes just change themes, colors, change characters, and try to turn things around as well. But I understand that like most publishers purely look at like day one retention and just hard KPIs.
I mean, we also try that definitely. What we learned is that though, for example, if you change a character in a game, this does not pivot your base, like your core KPIs, right? So you have a certain amount of playtime, so the amount of time that the user spends in your app. But if you say, change the character from an old man to a young, beautiful lady, this may have a positive impact, but it is not significant enough to really turn your game around, right? So if your mechanic is not that good, you cannot make up with a new theme for it, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But in general, of course, we try, once we have reached like the end of the MVP phase, we try to really optimize it. That means trying out different environments, backgrounds, different characters, different themes in a way, right? So this is all part of the process.
No. Okay, yeah, very different to like all other productions, I guess. Very, very special, yeah. How about you, Anke, in production-wise? How do you tackle this problem? The problem when you find out your pre-production results are not very good.
Yeah, I was a little shocked by this question, and I'm really glad about our illustrator and design lead. I think he's brilliant. He's just brilliant. So we hadn't ever faced the problem that a game he came up with wasn't fun at all. Of course, we are prototyping really fast, and so we have a broad palette of ideas where we can check which is right for the current contract work or something else, or what are we seeing in this game. And yeah, just by rough prototyping, we will see, is it something to build on or not? So it is the approach of Thiemo, but after that we are doing complete other stuff. But the fail faster credo is the best thing I have learned so far for deciding which game you will follow up. As example, currently we are working on a card game called Solitaire, and it was made up as a RPG solitaire title with a few special mechanics, but because of Corona and different job opportunities, we have to delay this game, and then several other games arrived with similar mechanics, and now we restructured the whole game so that it's still solitaire, but with complete and other hook for the player to get this game unique enough to throw it into the market.
Yeah.
I think for us, for me personally, I've not had to cancel any projects because it wasn't fun. There have been other reasons, such as differing in the vision for the game from what the developer had in mind. I've also had to cancel projects because something went wrong in the development team. There were complications, there were arguments, and they couldn't work it out within their team. And that was prior to my experiences at Paradox. When it comes to Paradox, we make no secret of it that we try a lot of projects that end up getting canceled. Again, I haven't experienced it myself, but it regularly happens that you spend a couple months on a game and then you discover that it's just not working out in the way that we'd hoped it would. And then we make sure that, I mean, we're a public company, so we have to make that known that we just canceled the game and that we have to write it off. It's a very normal part of the process.
Yeah.
Except that it takes a couple months instead of a week.
Yeah, it's always hard to kill your baby. Yeah. Well, I just came to this question because we have a recent example here from a German developer and publisher The title is called End Zone, from a German indie publisher, Assemble Entertainment. And I got to know that they actually planned something like a surgeon simulator during pre-production, and then they found out it didn't work, and they went back to the drawing board and created a hit game called End Zone. So not just like, creating something new, and like having the guts of saying, okay, we have to bin this, and we have to go into a different direction. I mean, not everybody can do this very well. It's always hard. I know a lot of people who just stick to it and try to get the most out of it, rather than just binning it. It's not a very...
Maybe one thing to add there, since we failed that much, and this is something we didn't learn for, I think, the first year of the company, and only started really getting like indulging in that in the last couple months, is that we do regularly retros for the projects. That means for every failed project, we sit together with the production team and really think, okay, guys, those are our market KPIs. Why didn't it work, right? And then over the past months, we really, like, we had kind of our all-time low in May. I think we had like 23 projects a month, and all of them failed. And then currently this month, or like last month, right? So August, we had, I think, 7 tests and 5 of them passed. So we really were able to learn from our mistakes, which we may have done sooner, I must admit, but the good thing is that we got there and that we really learned what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm for now basically done. I would like to hand over to Anke now. So I've spoken enough now, and tackling different subjects. Now it's like getting a little bit easier. So Anke, would you like to continue?
Yeah, so let's just talk about, again, job applications and starting into the career. So the first question we have is, do you think it's an advantage to have a good technical understanding of what the other departments do, like programming, QA, design, just to know what is feasible, what you can do?
Generally speaking, absolutely yes, but there's always a balance to find in the amount of depth you need to go. There's a lot you can learn from just experience working with teams as an intern, just listening, shadowing, and that sort of thing. The primary point where I found it to be useful is to call people out on whatever nonsense they sometimes spout about, this is roughly the estimate that I would give for this implementation. And I'm like, you just really don't want to do this thing, and that's why you're telling me that it will take 4 weeks. But I know that if you just concentrated, it would take 1. So it's, as I said, it's a balance of how deep you have to go, and you learn a lot on the job.
I 100% agree. I think not much more to add from myself.
Same here.
So basically just to call out people, it's really useful. All right. Yeah, what would you say is a producer's or project manager's most important quality? Or multiple ones?
For me, organizational skill. So I mean, we considered touching on if you needed formal training as well. And again, that ties into having a little background insight is always useful, but that applies to any discipline. So if you come from finance, that's also very useful. But you need to have a knack for organizing. You need to want to organize. You need to have that itch.
Yeah, I agree again. As I mentioned in the beginning, this like bird perspective, which I mentioned, right? So you need to know at what moment in time do I need to dive into the details, and at what moment in time do I have the overall do I need to have the overall overview? And I think this is something you can only acquire by experience. I mean, I had project management in uni, and then you learn some wild theories, but honestly, I've never applied any of those. in the end, it's really just, yeah, practical work experience that gets you there.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to add the communication stuff again, this knack for organization and a really open way to communicate to people and be open for what they are saying. That's all. That's all.
Yes.
All right. And tying into the thing Thiemo said about not applying what you learned in uni, what kind of skills, which skills can you only learn during actually professionally developing and not in education, like knowing your particular team and what they can do and how long they take and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I must admit, I didn't understand the question fully. Sorry, could you rephrase maybe?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. The question was, which or are there skills you can only learn by doing, not in education, for the project manager or producer role?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I mentioned, right? Like the last question. I mean, for me, from my experience, really organizational skills, managing people, coordination really comes with learning by doing. You can learn any theory, but in the end, that won't help you if you don't know how to talk to people, don't know what their concerns are, don't know how they feel, right? You really have to just get down to them, eye to eye level, and then discuss, hey, come on, this is the goal. How do we get there the best way possible? And ultimately, as I mentioned a couple of times, just experience.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting at like how much can you actually prepare to become a project manager, and like how much do you have to fail and fight fires all the time? So.
Like bicycling, go and do it. So if you are interested in this field, go grab your friends, make some game jams, and try to the task listing for such an event, and do it small and fail faster.
Yeah, that's some good advice.
I would also add, you learn to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. So in university, in school, in college, there's a lot of things that are fairly cookie cutter. You know exactly what the expectations are. It's been outlined from the start, and then you get to work and you work on it for a week, a couple weeks. In the game industry, you're constantly being pelted with things that you don't understand, that you have no experience with, that sounds incredibly intimidating to you, and you have to become comfortable with that. And, you know, there are going to be things on your path, and it's not just going to be a new platform or a new tool to learn, it's also going to be on the soft skill part. It's going to be when your colleague comes to you with a personal problem that they don't want you to share, but that is possibly harmful to the company, and you have to decide whether or not you want to share that with your management. It's also about learning how to be a leader, how to support your teams, and these are things that you need to basically accept as part of it, and learn how you need to develop to be able to be there for your team.
Yeah, that's some very good advice. Exactly.
Yeah, so as I understand, most of you don't personally hire currently in your current position, but what would you be looking for most in an applicant for a junior position? So someone who hasn't learned the things you just mentioned, basically.
As I mentioned in the beginning, I got promoted today, and my new position will actually involve hiring a team. As head of marketing creative. So especially in the last weeks, I really read up on this and like think, okay, what qualities are you looking in for in people? And I think overall, what I read is that mostly it really depends on your desire to learn, right? You can have all of the qualifications in the world, but you cannot really get rid of like toxicity in a way, right? But it's a lot better than to hire someone who may be unexperienced, but who's really hungry and willing to learn. And I think this may be like the fundamental approach I may be using when hiring, but yeah, let's see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically for a junior applicant, I would very much be looking for someone who is interested in problem solving. So someone, when I confront them with something that they very clearly haven't experienced yet, will start talking me through how they think and what they think needs to be done. And they don't have to be right, but they do have to, like, I've also had situations where I would ask a candidate and it would just be deer in headlights and they would be uncomfortable and it would just clearly not be what they wanted to do. I would also very much look for that organizational bug. So people that have organizational volunteering activities on their profile. So they've organized events, they've run D&D campaigns, they've participated in game jams in the producer kind of role. And those are things that are a sign for me that this is what you like doing. And lastly, I would look for culture add. So I wouldn't necessarily look for someone that already matches the culture that we have on the team, but I would start looking for diverse perspectives. Interestingly, my teams, especially my publishing production teams, have always been 80 to 90% women. So at some point I had to start looking for a Ben. And then I got an applicant who had a very different background. He was a dad. He had been in the game industry for a while, so he had more experience in the industry than the rest of my team had. And he was like, "Yes, I want this person," because it's so different from what we already had.
Yeah, for us, it's not a topic, so I can make up stuff right now. Like, okay, imagine you are on a game jam. What will you do as a producer? And questions like that. But yeah, I haven't thought deeper about that because we aren't hiring.
Okay, yeah. But that was some very good answers from Thiemo and Juney. Very good points for juniors. I absolutely agree. It's like you need a lot of soft skills these days as well, and to organize things. And yeah, you don't have to be very experienced, but accept the challenge and show you the way they think. I think is the most important. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So you already obviously gave a lot of advice in this talk, but is there any other specific advice you would like to give someone who's interested in becoming a project manager and/or producer?
I would advise that it's important to take your time. Even as producer, you don't need to come up with every single solution out of the box. So I remember in the beginning, I felt very pressured to do this and give stupid answers just out of my head, but this won't help. So take the questions you have and take time to think them through, and then go back to the people and help them out. And be sure that the most rules you will face are not as hard and fixed as you think. So it's not it's not a programmed game, it's life. Life is much more flexible than the most of us think.
And to add to that is, there is going to be more work coming your way than you can handle in your work week. And given exceptional circumstances in a growing company, in a company that has ambitions, that is not necessarily going to be your fault. And that is something that I struggled with personally for 1.5 years before I acknowledged to myself that, hey, managing 15 projects by myself may not be entirely feasible. And that hit me hard at the time. And it took a lot of soul searching to discover that, hey, maybe this is just part of the job. Maybe this is where we need to start looking at hiring someone. And what's important at that is when you can't start hiring, you need to start having conversations with your manager about how to prioritize if you're not able to do it yourself. And then if that means that some things are not going to get done, that's a conversation that needs to be had. So that is something that I wish someone would have told me 5 years ago.
Yeah, very good point.
I can 100% relate to that. Actually, beginning of the year, I had a burnout, which was a lot for my age. I'm 24. And then when I talked to like old colleagues, they were like, what, dude, you're like 24. How did that happen? So really this thing, there will be more than you can handle. And that's okay. That was for me really, really, really hard to accept. But maybe also like coming back to the advice for people that want to start out in project management. I think I want to circle back to something Juney said. So I think you really need to either have the desire or be like an organizational talent. Like you really need to organize. For example, in your free time, do you organize parties? Do you, for your school, did anything else? And I think also what then comes with that is a communication skill, right? So you need to have good ideas, but then you also need to be clearly able to communicate those. I think those two are very important.
Yeah. Just very good answers. Thank you, guys.
Definitely. So you basically covered this already, but anything else you would have liked to know, or you would have liked, sorry, talking. Anything you would have liked to know before starting in project management or producing? Did the question make sense? I hope.
Makes sense to me, but I think from my part, I answered. I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that, but maybe you would have had something to add. So the last question from us is only for two of you, because as Anke already mentioned, they do not hire at the moment because they are a full team. But does your company have any open positions in project management or producing, both for employees or interns?
We do currently have open production roles, but they are more on the senior level. That doesn't mean that they won't open, however. We have positions opening and closing every week. So make sure to either sign up for the newsletter or just keep looking back at the career page, because there's always stuff opening up. I will say that we don't have that many internships when it comes to production. If we do have them, they usually are on the development side, and they're for specific studios, because there are different rules in different countries about what kind of internships you can and can't offer. Here in the Netherlands, we do occasionally have production interns with Triumph Studios, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We currently do not have any open positions in project management for starters, only for professionals, and then also like as a producing role. We're really looking for that. So unfortunately, that's a no from our side. However, what I can really recommend is working in a startup. I mean, I think I've talked about it quite a lot, but I think the learnings you can acquire in the same time frame, corporate versus startup, it's so much more on the startup side. I think you will definitely have an advantage over other people that do choose the maybe also safer, one must admit, but yeah, maybe more sounder way of working in a corporate. So that's my advice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was really great hearing all that from you guys. We are at the end of the questions, and we did have some questions from our viewers in our chat window, and we would like to go back to them if you don't mind. Yeah, sometimes we have to go back to like a few other topics, but I thought it would be best to just gather all the questions for you now. So Annika, you ready to go through them?
Yeah, so there are some questions for all of you and some for specific people, just so you know. Yeah, we could actually start with a very practical question, which is which task tracking tool do you use, if you use any, and what is a feature you would never want to go without?
So task tracking tool currently very interesting. We used to have Google Sheets for the last 1.5 years. And we are certainly at the end of that phase, because at some point it just gets too chaotic. And currently we're looking into, or actually I'm looking into other project management tools, specifically Monday.com seems to be our favorite right now. So still Google Sheets, but at some point we'll transition into a more professional tool.
For us, it's just something simple as Trello, so easy and fast is our way.
For me right now, I'm just going back to Google Sheets for my own personal task tracking with a lot of different colors and then a lot of cells where I can just type whatever and nobody reads it. So if it's got spelling errors or if it doesn't make sense, it makes sense for me. For the team that I'm working with, we're currently just about in the QA phase. So we're just using Jira for everything QA related.
Yeah.
All right. So someone asked, what do you have to say about the interpersonal challenges as a producer, team lead, or project manager? Do you have some personal lessons you've learned that you'd like to share about that?
I think for me, this is something that you invest in upfront by making sure that you do one-on-ones, making sure that you dedicate time to sitting with your people, getting to know them, to understand what their priorities, what their values are, because it will help you understand what they're going through when something comes up. And then it's a producer's job to help their team be the best that they can be, and that can mean arranging a license or getting hardware, but it can also mean supporting them and honestly almost being a therapist for them. So it's up to you to step in when you see that someone's having a personal problem or there is a problem between two colleagues. So for me, it's at the core of what a producer does.
Yeah, I agree. I think you really need to get to know your people, especially for us. We are super international. I think there are only like 4 or 5 German people out of the 25, so really all over the globe. And of course, that brings along cultural differences. So yeah, as I mentioned, you really have to get to know your people, and then also, and that's fortunately something I really learned in uni, like some tendencies of different cultures. And then overall, as Juney said, it's your job to really align all of these people and then make them feel comfortable and push them to their best of their ability.
Absolutely.
I want to add that you should be ready to be the person who brings the bad news, and normally this guy got shot. So there will be very unhappy moments and hard discussions, and often you are the person to put a finger on a pain point and ask what is happening here, because you need something to do about it. So to find out these problems and make them clear to one person or the team could be painful for yourself. So it's important to learn to get some point of distance between your personal position and your working position, and maybe also talk to your team and get some kind of culture for this hard time of arguments.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen that many times, especially when like friends working together can create weird situations. Yeah.
And one small thing I still wanted to add, because occasionally the problem is also with you, and the people on your team look to you as being a haven of calm, of wisdom. Yeah. You're often the person that has to ensure that the ship stays steady. So if you receive feedback or if you have to give feedback that causes a conflict, you often have to be, well, I wouldn't say the adult, but kind of the adult in the room, and you have to navigate your own emotions to keep your cool. And you know, there are ways to learn how to deal with feedback, and it's up to you to set that example and make sure that your team learns how to do that.
Yeah, keep calm in stormy weathers. Okay, Annika, is there anything else?
Of course.
Of course.
So Anke and Juney, any specific advice for females starting in the gaming industry and the struggles that come with that?
Be ready for penis jokes. Yeah, 10 years ago it was the standard, but yeah, I find them more nice as your mother jokes. I'm not into this kind of stuff. Yeah, for my experience, it's bad because I'm out of the technical field like Juney. So if you grew up in a male domain, I think you would experience this difference, like someone who was in an equal field and then come to a male dominated field. So for me, I don't see special points, just a self-confidence thing. So lass dir nicht die Butter vom Brot nehmen. Don't take your butter from the bread.
For me, I've been in the exceptionally fortunate position that I've not really had to deal with anything very close to that, but I completely understand that my experience is not very typical in the industry. I know that there are a lot of people that go through challenges, and not just women, just minorities in general, and beyond that too. And if you feel that you are going through a challenging time because of that, there are people out there that are there to listen, that are there to help. Make sure that you reach out. If you feel like you can't handle a situation, like join a group that has other producers in it, that has other women developers in it, that has other folks from a specific minority that can help guide you through whatever the situation is.
Oh, I want to add something. Also, here the rules aren't as fixed as you might think. If you tell what the things are you are not fine with, normally the other people will be more kind. Sometimes you will go into an environment with this own field and culture, and they even don't get that they hurt someone or something like this. So please stand up for yourself, or go to your next higher stuff and talk about them if you don't feel welcomed enough inside the team to talk to them directly. But you don't need to take any sort of shit. So I have trained my colleagues from the very beginning which jokes I find funny and which are not okay. So in this environment, it is funny for all. Yep.
Yeah, excellent.
So one question was, do you like to work creatively as well? Sorry. And if so, do you feel like the job role of a producer or project manager in the games industry still allows for that, to live out your creativity, or is it rather not for that?
There were definitely times where I needed to be very creative. That was when we kind of transitioned. Like, we hired a lot of people, we were short of actual producers, so I had to jump into that role. Frankly, I did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would love it. Like, being creative on one side is cool, but I think designing games and coming up constantly with new ideas, for me at least, was not something I was particularly good at. So I had to do the job, but like once I transitioned back to, I would say, only a project manager, and then just feedbacking, right? Not coming up with the actual idea, but just feedbacking creatively. That was something I really liked, but actually having to come up with the concept was a little tough, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah. I think if you just have a small team like us, you won't come around such a task. So you need to be creative to help the team out with the development process, because it's not good if just only one people is designing the game alone. So I think it's important when it comes to team sizes. When you have a very big team with many different leads, I think you need more organization, and of course you have more specific topics in your fields than with a very small team, and not many different small teams, just one small team where you work more interdisciplinary.
In all honesty, for me, problem solving is entirely creative. In chaotic environments that change constantly, you need to think on your feet and you need to think outside of the box. And that means that even if it's not necessarily a design task, you're still going to end up having to flex your brain muscles and get down to it and figure out what possible solutions nobody ever thought of. And in addition to that, there are little design tasks in every single corner. So even if you're working on a porting project, you still get asked to design what kind of selection of achievements you have to make for console and what kind of imagery gets used for that. You have to support with the design of, for example, controller conversion when you're bringing a PC title to console that won't necessarily have a dedicated designer on it. And it's not the glorious write to the narrative or make the concept art for the character, but it is crucial work that needs doing that's going to just as much influence the final player experience. So, it's, that there's just a lot of creativity involved that may not be superficial, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree on that. Programming is a very creative task in itself. So a lot of programmers are actually very good designers, game designers, in my point of view.
So a question specifically for Anke is just basically about advice for someone who thinks about founding a company because you built your own company with your colleagues.
So the question is just what I would recommend, or I don't get it right now.
The question specifically is about financing, but I think that would go a bit too far away from the topic here. But
yeah,
maybe if you have just something.
I have here the Hamburger Kreativgesellschaft has a special founding opportunity for young corporations in Hamburg. Yeah, it's a really different topic. The first thing which should be cleared is Rechtsform. So what type of company would you be? Would you be just GbR, UG, GmbH? I think this are the first points because they are different in financial needs. It's a special point. A GbR couldn't go insolvent. Sorry, I just dropped German words because I don't know the English ones.
All right.
Yeah, so as a UG or GmbH, you have more responsibilities against the official tax office and such stuff. So for really beginners, you should think about the Rechtsform you are choosing.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So again, a question about getting into the industry. We probably all heard of the problem. Even junior roles or junior job offers often ask for 2 years of experience or stuff like that. And what do you think about that? Can an applicant who applies for a junior position maybe fill out that role, or are those 2 years that are often written about in job offers really necessary?
So far, I've often not necessarily looked for experience in the game industry, but experience in project management, and that did not have to be as someone working in an official capacity in some way. So that's why all of us have also mentioned anything that you do as extracurriculars. So participating in game jams, but also running D&D campaigns and organizing parties and organizing events within the game industry. These are all activities that give you project management experience. It just needs to be about reflecting on what lessons you've learned and spinning that in such a way that you can come across as, hey, I do actually have some experience in this.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add, or should we go to the next question?
Was a very good answer.
Yeah, I think so too.
Fair enough. And the next question. As COVID has really shown us what actually can be done in remote work, as many companies have switched to part-time or full remote work. What do you think about the producer's role? Is that a position that could actually be filled remotely, or is that a position where you really should be in the office most of the time?
I think theoretically it can be filled like remotely. However, what we saw and what I already mentioned is that, first of all, the communication is just a lot faster once you're with your team in your room. And also, and that's really, really important for us as a company, the idea conception phase just is so much easier once you're all in one room. So theoretically possible, yes. Practically desirable, I would say no.
I've seen it work in remote first teams, but it needs to be about expectation management. It also needs to be about good communication in different stages of the project. So as Thiemo mentioned, if you can work in such a way that you will spend a certain period of the time in the office, and that could be a portion of the week, that could also be for a committed period of several weeks, then I think it's perfectly possible. And if your team is just entirely remote, then there is basically no other option, because even if you have a building, there's not really going to be anyone that's there. So I definitely think it's possible, but it entirely depends on the team and the project and what phase you are in.
Yes, I agree to what you both said. And what for me is important, then the digital stuff is for our team slower than the personal meetings. And I find it is much more easy to miss the fine notes in communication, how the others are really feeling, are there hidden problems. I think this stuff will come to the surface much slower on the distant way. So I would recommend seeing each other sometimes, especially when you have friendships involved and are not a team which was built around the world and are used to work this way. So it depends on your starting position and your team group.
All right. Yeah, that's it from us and from the questions from the chat we would like to ask. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
For your answers, and yeah, we would like to announce something some of you may have already seen on social media. We have something new for this event. We would like to invite our viewers to the Gamecity Online Hub. You should find the link in the chat, or it will be dropped there any minute now, to just network a bit and like close the evening off with that. So yeah, you're all very much invited to that. And yeah, we would also like to announce our Gamecity Hamburg's next event, just so you know when to tune in next time. That will be the event Gamecity Impulse Gaming Communities, Competitive and Caring, which is about how to build a not so typical gaming community, and it will be on September 29. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and thank you very much to our panel.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. It was really insightful.
Thank you guys, very cool round.
See you soon.
Thank you, Thiemo and Juney. It was so interesting to see so different company people.
Likewise.
Yes. Thank you, guys. All right, take care. Speak soon. Bye.